pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a meeting of the Lincoln County Commission regular session on December 5th, 2019. Members present are Darrell Baker, Phoebe Harless, and Josh Stowers. Commissioner Vance is absent. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our last regular session that was held on November 21st, 2019 at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Okay, I'll have a motion. I'll second that. All in favor, aye. Aye. Motion carries. Did we have anybody signed in to speak? I forgot to grab it.
I don't see nobody.
Nobody's on there? Okay. That would be you, Jared, if anybody was. Okay, the first thing on the agenda under discussion and possible action is a resolution in support of the 911 dispatchers, which I have attached, but I think Josh wants to speak to that.
Sure, yeah, so Jared brought to my attention that there had been a resolution in support of 911 public safety telecommunications circulated throughout the state, and I think we're up to what, about 30 counties roughly that have passed the resolution. Yeah. And essentially what it is just it's a resolution just recognizing 911 public safety telecommunicators as first responders and how they play a critical role in the whole emergency response system, as well as our firefighters and police officers and a whole host of first responders. And so, I mean, without reading the entire resolution, it just essentially recognizes sacrifices that are very similar to the other first responders, and recognizes the public safety telecommunicators as first responders. So, you know, I would move that we pass the resolution and join the other roughly 30 counties to support our public safety telecommunicators.
I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
So we will sign this resolution.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. The next thing we have is Lisa Wells from Region 2.
It's been a while.
It has.
Well, I do have a drawdown, but before I get to that, I just wanted to give an update on, you know, there was potentially some extra work that could be done on the existing Limber Mud project. And they finally did come to an agreement with USDA on the remaining grant funds, which ended up being roughly $345,845.96. That's due to extra work. We're looking at doing a 1 mile extension out Buffalo Creek that'll serve about 14 additional customers. Work will begin in January. It'll be Chinaki. It's a continuation of the existing contract. They're kind of tied up with some other jobs right now, so January looks to be when they'll be able to get started. Aiming for a substantial completion date for the project towards the end of February, depending on when they get started. So they're basically but it's not a long-term project like the initial project was. I do have a drawdown to present. It's drawdown request number 19 in the amount of $2,733.21. And what's included in this drawdown request are 5 invoices from Region 2 Planning and Development Council from the months of May into September.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the drawdown number 19 on Lower Mud River Bank?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second that. All in favor, aye. Aye. Motion carries.
You sign the book, I think you sign one.
Okay. That's quite a good money, what for, that's good to get it here, 14. Cool.
good that they're flexible. A lot of other funding sources are not, so
Yeah.
it's good that they're flexible to do some extra things at the end of the project if there's any funds left over.
Was that mobilization phase two?
Yeah, that's part of phase two.
Do they overshoot the estimates? Is that how someone ends up? Or
Sometimes, I mean, there
turns
was
out
a
to be
bid
lot-
underrun on this particular project.
materials are cheaper or something?
There was a period of time, we're not seeing that so much
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
but at that time, yeah, there were quite a few projects that had pretty substantial bid underruns, so. Yeah, but there's some extra wiggle room, we'll play with that.
14, that's in the right direction, isn't it?
Yeah,
Plus 14.
Josh, I think you've got one here to sign if you wanna. Okay, it's right here. All right, got the done.
alright, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, the next item on the agenda was, it says Hamlin Fire Department, and they called this week and asked to have that removed from the agenda, so I'm gonna strike that. Okay, the next thing is the expiring term of, Hamlin PSD member. We received a letter, which, Josh, you should have a copy. I can find it here. From the Hamlin Public Service District, saying that, Carl Melko's term is expiring on January 24th, 2020, and the term would go through, 2026, January 24th, 2026. And they are just asking us to reappoint him to the board. I didn't know if you wanted to advertise or to go ahead and reappoint him, or.
This is, I mean, it's by request of what I would just move for his reappointment.
All right. The term doesn't expire for over a month, so, he's already filled out an application, hasn't he, Mary?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a motion to just, go ahead and appoint Mr. Malkus back to his term. I'll second that. All in favor, aye? Motion carries. So I guess just, Mary, can you get a hold of him and tell him that?
Yeah.
Okay. We have nothing under unfinished business. And under new business, nothing, just wills, states, bills. Do you have any questions about it, Josh? Okay, do I have a motion to, approve the new business as listed on the agenda? I have a motion, I'll second that. All in favor, aye. Motion carries to approve the new business. I guess that's it. Do you have anything else under discussion? Okay, if you don't, then, I'll need a motion to adjourn until our regular session, next meeting on Thursday, December 19th, and that meeting is at 10 a.m.
Do you have any questions for me about any projects that we're working on in the office? Okay. One thing that I do wanna say before we adjourn, so the press can copy it. Yeah, you are the press. Okay, so, Sean can do it. Is we have downloaded from the phone company, all of the county telephone numbers, and we're in the process of going through and scrubbing the list for errors and invalid addresses that go along with phone numbers. And we have been making numerous calls throughout the day, the evenings, and some of the weekends to do this. And it is us, it is legitimate, we're not trying to sell you anything, and we've had a lot of people think we were doing some kind of scam, and we've been told that we were gonna, well, we've been told a lot of things over the phone because people thought we were scamming them, so I'd just like for Sean to report that, hey, we are validating those numbers, we are checking, we are trying to update records that, of people that have went and got a phone from the phone company and not necessarily got an address that matches or an address even exists, in the record that the phone company
Now,
has,
who's
so.
doing, is Joe making the calls, or who, do you have people?
Tammy Underwood is doing a lot of that. She's a part-time employee and she's done a killer job. We started off with like 300 numbers a month ago, and we're down to like 62 right now. And it's down to the point of, you call during the day, you call in the evening, you call on the weekends, and you just, it was just part of something we do every so often, and we're meeting a lot more resistance than we ever have due to the current situation with somebody trying to scam you every time they call you.
Yeah,
So-
along those same lines, Alan, tomorrow, I think the state's supposed to send out those mass mailings, so they haven't went out yet, and their address verifications, we'll be sending, they'll come back to our office, and it's just to verify, their address on their voter registration too. So, I mean, it's kind of along the same lines, you'll get a card in the mail instead of a phone call, but if anybody gets that card in the mail, they need to send it back, just
So
check a
the
box and send
Secretary
it
of
back.
State's office is sending out,
They're doing the mailing. It was just easier for the Secretary of State's office to get a vendor to copy all these cards off instead of each individual county getting the vendor. But
then it'll come back to here though.
yeah, it's a comparison of DMV and postal addresses, and they call it ERIC and NCOA, and it's a comparison. If the address is different than what's on the voter system, we send them a card, and they verify which is the correct address.
And if they don't, are they?
That's what I was gonna ask next, what if you don't get it back?
If they don't, they're moved to an inactive status, which doesn't mean you can't vote, but it starts your countdown to being canceled.
So, let's just say I vote every election, I'm a person who never misses an election, but if I don't send this card back,
As soon as there's any voter activity whatsoever, if you vote, you'll be moved back to active. It's a way of prompting people to get the correct address back in.
but it's putting more on your office too, to
Yeah,
do.
it does, but
I mean, a lot of people, especially, I myself sometimes, when
What's the
stuff is
countdown?
like,
What time?
the amount of mailings going out to the list, I believe, was 678.
I mean,
How
once you're
long?
put on an active status, how long until you're purged from the list?
You still have 2 federal elections, 2 federal, so it could be 4 years. 4 years.
so
or
you
more
would be
or less.
inactive, if I did, say I don't send that card back,
Mhm.
I would be considered inactive for 4 years?
No, you,
Right.
well, yeah, potentially, unless you do have some kind of activity.
But if you went and voted in the next election,
You're moved back to active
You're moved back
status.
to active.
Active status, and that's not to say that you might not be sent a card again if your addresses doesn't match, but
I think that's gonna cause a lot of confusion with people, and then they're gonna think, oh, I'm not.
it happens though. I mean, that's a part of the system of working on the voter rolls to try to make sure they're right.
But you're not sending out. There's not going to be 13,000 sent out here.
678, I believe, was the
Okay.
exact number.
how do they identify?
And I'll tell you the amount of changes that done. The list was at 700, I believe 780 last month. So that many people has done an update somewhere that soon to get
How
done to
do they
678.
identify the 687 or whatever it is?
It's-
How do they identify those people as someone to send a notification?
It's a comparison from the DMV, the address they have at the DMV, as opposed to what they have on the SVRS, the statewide voters registration system, and or the postal service. We're doing actually doing 2 sets at one time. This is the first time we've got our numbers down to where we can do them at the same time now. Before, it was a big undertaking.
So
I
you
mean,
didn't tell them, the 600 people, they did that themselves
They,
back
they,
in here?
it's done in other states too. They call
But
it
they can
ERIC and
compare.
NCOA. Postal Service and the DMV is compared with the voter rolls.
So every time you get your license renewed at DMV, you have to have a 911 address that's valid, and you have to have a letter. We do multiple letters a day validating addresses. So those have to be updated, every 4 years, or every 5 years. So by comparing it against DMV's gonna have new addresses that people will have not updated them on your end, so I would think that, by comparing it with DMV, it'll clean up and make yours correct.
Every time we've done it, we've got closer to having a more correct voter roll. So, I mean, if as far as that part, it works.
Well, I've got a feeling that we'll be working together to try to identify some of those, and that's great, because I've got a feeling that some of the people that we have the hardest time contacting will be the same ones that are on your list.
When you all talk to the DMV, won't you, ask them about putting a physical address and the PO box on their license?
In other words, in what, not on their license, but on what comes back to you as a dispatcher?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't know what goes on the license. I don't know if your license gets the post office box or the physical address.
People that have PO box, it goes on their license, and, you know, there's a lot of times that law enforcement will ask us to run, a license in order to get an address. Well, that address pops up as a PO box, they have no clue where to go.
I thought you had to have a physical
I did
address.
too.
You do to get it, but that's not what's given to us when we run a license check.
But I think, you know, I mean, both of them are to be put on there.
We have that, and as far as like voter rolls, we have a physical and a mailing, because we have to have that physical to put them in the correct precinct. If you can get a PO box, you know,
So
anywhere
when
in
I go
there.
to the DMV to get my license, I give them my physical
work-
address,
that's
that's
correct.
what's on the license.
Working hard,
But
you
when
can
they
get a
come
PO
back
box
to
over
you,
there,
they'll
and
give
get
you
your
a
mail.
PO box?
Keep in mind that when you go to DMV and all that information's entered in, there's this big file about Phoebe Harless, okay? It has physical address, it has all of your DUIs, if you've ever had one, which I'm sure you have.
Big fun.
But it has all of this information in it. But you said fast recovery, but it has all of that information in it. But when we run it through the computer system that the 911 center has access to, we just get a small picture of that data. So we only get suspensions and revocations for 2 years. We get all DUIs. But when the insurance company runs it, the insurance company has reference to the last 7 years. So what we get is significantly different than what is available at DMV. And you're making a valid point, and I'm gonna be at just the meeting tomorrow to bring that up, and I'll bring that up with the rest of the 911 directors. We are working very hard to get the other computer system that's down there for the records and the Supreme Court and Circuit Court and all of that tied into the statewide NCIC. So instead of having 3 sources to check warrants on people, we'll have 1. So that's part of the discussion tomorrow, and that would be perfect to bring that up. I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a motion to adjourn already.
Yep.
Second. I made it. I
I'll
think.
second. We will adjourn till